All right, you have been listening live there in downtown Los Angeles. That is District Attorney Nathan Hochman speaking this morning, or now this afternoon. His recommendation that the court should deny the habeas motion filed in May of 2023 by the defense for Erik and Lyle Menendez.
And this was a very detailed press conference laying out his case for denying the habeas petition. And to help us understand all of this, so much to talk about. What could happen next? We're joined by Josh Ritter, former prosecutor and legal analyst. What do you make of this? It seems like he's litigating their position right now.
Yeah, he took great pains to really go through all of the reasons behind why they're denying the petition, the habeas petition. Not denying it, opposing it. But he also took great pains to go back to the murders themselves and talk about the circumstances and the cover-up and the planning and the violence and their trying to establish an alibi and all the steps that they took afterwards and deceits that they had made to law enforcement. To me, that seemed not required for what we were here for today. And if I were the defense, I would say that his posture today does not bode well for the hearing that's going to take place in March.
He was undermining Erik and Lyle's, case for getting out of prison.
And credibility.
Yeah,
absolutely. It wasn't just about, listen, habeas is a very specific question. They haven't met those standards. Here's the evidence and why we feel that it doesn't meet those standards. He also, like you said, went after them and the statements that they've made to police, again, reminding us of the violence of the crimes, even their own excuse for why they committed the crimes, why that may not have been satisfactory for committing 2 murders, including their own mother. So I think this, it is a precursor certainly for maybe the position that the DA's office will have for this resentencing hearing coming up in March.
We were speaking as we were listening there for the better part of an hour, about 50 minutes. This was something perhaps that he didn't need to do, but it's all about the media spotlight on this case.
Yeah, he knows that this case is getting a lot of attention, and I think if it were any other case, they would have just filed their opposition to the habeas, but he felt like he needed to thoroughly explain why he was doing this, but I think he's also explaining their position on how they feel about this as a new administration, different from George Gascon's view of this case, how his office now views the facts and circumstances surrounding the murder. He didn't even go into a lot of the argument for why they are asking for resentencing, which has been their time in prison. He didn't really even touch on how have they behaved as inmates. To him, it was much more about the circumstances of the crime, how brutal they were, and their actions during that time.
Yeah, like let's review this case. Let's review how heinous these killings were. But let's talk about the resentencing, which is scheduled for March 20th. What can we expect? That will happen no matter what. But the DA will present their take on the resentencing. Yes,
and one interesting thing is today he didn't announce that they're withdrawing because it's the prosecution's motion to even ask for the resentencing. They didn't announce that they're withdrawing that motion. They didn't say that they've changed their position. In fact, he referred to it as a date that's going to take place, and they will let their positions known at that time. But yes, this was an independent track. They're now saying they oppose the habeas, and they will make their position known at the resentencing hearing. But given what we've heard today, I don't know if we're going to hear the same positions that we've heard from the DA's office before at that resentencing hearing in March.
The habeas motion, the resentencing motion, the clemency, 3 different tracks that DA Nathan Hochman described during that press conference. And the clemency is interesting for everyone to remember and acknowledge that Governor Newsom, he has the ability to release them now, if he wanted to.
He sure does, and he's had that for some time, too. In fact, it only became really an issue when Gascon was still the DA. He sent a letter to the governor, in addition to asking for this resentencing, saying, hey, by the way, why don't you grant them clemency? I'm in support of that. And the governor has not responded to that, instead waiting to see the position of Mr. Hochman, who's now been elected. His position, I think, has become pretty clear, but essentially what Mr. Hochman said today is the ball's in the governor's court as far as what he wants to do on clemency.
Right, and Nathan Hochman ran on being tougher on crime, and he won. He won the popular vote. So clearly, Angelenos want an administration that is tougher on crime. So will the governor now release? It doesn't seem to sort of to flow together. Like it wouldn't make sense for him to release them. So the resentencing, in my opinion, would be the next possibility, and that does not look likely.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the winds may have changed here on this case. I doubt that the governor will act before that resentencing hearing in March. It could still be that the prosecution kind of maybe takes a more hands-off approach to this resentencing and says, listen, Judge, if you're going to resentence, at least you should understand all the underlying facts and circumstances of this case and why, in fact, they were sentenced to life without parole originally. But again, I go back to the fact that the only reason that's in front of a judge is because of the prosecutor's office has brought that motion. So it's really their motion to make. And if they don't have the same position, they could withdraw it at any time, which he didn't say, but it does seem like he certainly views it differently.
Josh Ritter, thank you for joining us. It's excellent insight. It was a lot to unpack there after that nearly hour-long news conference in downtown Los Angeles. DA Nathan Hochman recommending that the court should deny the habeas motion for what could be a new trial for the Menendez brothers. Thank you again for coming in.